Alright, for those of you who just clicked on this video, just a reminder, each section from the review is done in a separate video. Okay, so this is section 3. This has questions 6, 7, 8, and 9. This is the substitution method section. So use the substitution to solve each system of equations. If the system does not have exactly one solution, state whether it has no solution or infinitely many solutions. Let's get right down to business. We're told to use substitution. Okay, so what that means, our first step in our substitution process is make sure we have one variable completely isolated. Fortunately, in number 6, we already have that. It's y is equal to 3x. So we're going to bring that down and we're going to sub it into y in our second equation. So x plus 3x equals 4. Now all we have to do is simplify. X plus 3x is 4x. That equals 4. And if you divide by 4, x is going to be equal to 1. That was step 2 right there. We substituted in, and then we solved for x. Now, step 3 says take this value, plug it back in to one of our original equations for x, and that will give us y. So when I do that, I have y equals, instead of 3 times x, I have 3 times 1, and therefore we know y equals 3. Lastly, write your answer. X is 1, y is 3. There's your answer. Folks, if you want to check your answer, come back up and plug it into both equations. So if y is 3, that means 3 should equal 3 times 1, which it does. And x is 1, y is 3, so 1 plus 3 equals 4. Hey, it works. So our answer checks in both equations, and that's what you need. Alright, let's move on to a little tougher one. Number 7. Neither of our equations have a variable that's completely isolated, completely by itself. So I'm going to look at this guy right here. This has a negative 1 in front of it. It's going to be the easiest y value to get by itself, or the easiest variable to get by itself, excuse me. So I'm going to work with this equation. I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides of the top equation. That leaves me with negative y equals 10 minus 5x. And y is not yet isolated, okay, because this is a negative 1y, so we need to divide by negative 1. And remember, each of these guys has to get divided by negative 1. So that equation finally, getting y by itself, we should have negative 10 plus 5x. Now, that is step 1. Okay, step 2 says take this expression right here and plug it into the other equation in place of y. So let's do that. So rewriting this second equation, except instead of y, we're putting in this guy for it. So 7x. And instead of writing minus 2, I'm going to put plus a negative 2, because you guys like to see that sometimes. Instead of times y, it's going to be times negative 10 plus 5x equals 11. Okay, now that we have our values substituted in, all we have left are x's, so let's just solve this equation. So first step is to distribute our negative 2. So 7x. Negative 2 times negative 10 is positive 20. And negative 2 times positive 5x is negative 10x equals 11. Some of you, once again, you don't like to see minus 10x. You like to see plus a negative 10x. I don't care how you write it. And let's just continue simplifying. 7x plus negative 10x is a negative 3x when we combine our like terms. Plus 20 still equals 11. Let's subtract 20 from both sides. Oops. Sorry about that. That leaves us with negative 3x equals negative 9. Divide by negative 3. And you're left with x equals positive 3. Now, step 2 is done. Take this value, plug it back into one of our original equations in place of x. So I'm going to choose the top equation. Okay. So instead of 5 times x, I'm going to say 5 times 3 minus y equals 10. I just rewrote the top equation with 3 in place of x. So it's 15 minus y equals 10. I'm going to subtract 15 from both sides. So I'm left with negative y equals negative 5. And then divide by negative 1 to get y by itself. So y equals positive 5. So my final answer for number 7 should be 3, 5. And if you don't believe me, then you should check it. That's in your best interest to know how to check and to use the check. For time's sake, I'm not going to do it. Let's move on to 8. So again, you need to get one of your variables completely by itself. So I'm going to choose to get this guy right here, this x by itself, because all I have to do is add 6y to both sides. Folks, if I'm moving too fast, remember you can pause and you can rewind. Okay, now I should be left with x equals 6y plus 4. Okay, that's my new top equation. So step 1 is done, and now I need to go down to my bottom equation and rewrite it. But instead of writing 3 times x, I'm going to write 3 times this whole thing. 6y plus 4 minus 18y equals 4. Okay, now we've got all y's for our variables. So it's going to make this easy. Let's just solve the equation. So let's distribute the 3. 18y plus 12 minus 18y equals 4. Guys, hopefully you've recognized it already. When you combine your like terms, positive 18y and a negative 18y, these guys are going to cancel out. So you're only going to be left with 12 equals 4. We know that's not a true statement, so we don't have to go any further. Don't waste your time. This is no solutions. Okay, don't waste time. If you know that these guys are going to cancel out and you're going to be left with a false statement, boom, no solutions. Now let's move on. Number 9, last one on this video. Alright, I'm going to choose to get x by itself again because it'll only take me one step. So add 5y to both sides. And that's going to, here, I'm going to draw a line here. There we go. That's going to leave us with x equals 10 plus 5y. Alright, step 1 is done. I'm moving on to step 2. I'm going to rewrite my second equation, or my other equation, but instead of writing 2 times x, I'm going to write 2 times this whole thing, 10 plus 5y. Minus, now back up here, minus 10y equals 20. Let me fix that equals sign for you. Once again, I only have y's left, so now let's just solve the equation. So 2 times 10 is 20, plus 2 times 5y is 10y, minus 10y equals 20. Once again, hopefully you guys see it already. This is a positive 10y, and this is a negative 10y. So when you combine like terms, those guys are going to cancel out. You're going to be left with, this time, a true statement. If our variables are eliminated and you're left with a true statement, then it's not no solutions, it's infinitely, we're going to have infinitely many solutions, okay? This is equivalent to if you had graphed these two equations, they would have been the exact same line. They would have fallen on top of each other. And if you had graphed number 8, these lines would have been parallel. And our first two, if you had graphed them, the lines would have intersected. They would have crossed. Okay? All right, we'll see you in the next one.